Jason Frazier, how's it going today, buddy?
Good, Kevin. How you doing, man?
Doing good, my man. Hey, Jason Frazier, founder of the Agent Marketer, joining us today on the Next Level podcast. Thank you for joining me. And man, I'm glad we finally got to do this. We've tried to schedule this a few times now and had some crazy scheduling, right?
Yeah, no, and that's it's when you have two busy people and then trying to schedule an actual time to where you're quiet, you don't have phones ringing and notifications to do this. It gets crazy.
No doubt. Well, hey, man, I thought it'd be cool to have you on the podcast. Obviously, as you know, my podcast is mostly aimed at realtors. There's some lenders and a few other
Mhm.
people in our industry as well, and some entrepreneurs. I try to bring in people who don't just sell real estate or don't just do one thing or the other, but I try to get a good mix because one of the things I've always tried to do in my real estate career is learn from those around me,
Yep.
both that are like serve our industry like you do, like you're obviously a player inside of our industry with all the things that you've got your hands in, which I'm excited to talk about, but also some of the other people who just aren't even, they're nowhere closely related to real estate because I think in a way it's all related because it's all business, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd be cool to talk to you, obviously with your experience with founding the Agent Marketer.
Mhm.
You've got a lot of things there that are tangible that can help realtors, but you also have a unique experience with the mortgage industry in your background and all
Yep.
the things that you've done speaking and kind of growing these social influence and circles over the last couple of years as well, that I thought it'd be really cool just to kind of have a good conversation and kind of let's start though with like, who is Jason Frazier? I just did a terrible job introducing you. So I'll let you actually introduce yourself now.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know me, Jason Frazier, founder of the Agent Marketer. I've been a mortgage exec was a mortgage exec for 10 years. Started in 2009. Mortgage business is a family business for me. So I was born into the mortgage industry, and then had a few family members that were also in real estate. Back in Merrill Lynch days, if you can remember when they did real estate. So it was a long time, and then also Mason McDuffie real estate back in the Bay Area. And so it's been in my blood. It's not where my path took me. Prior to that, my background is all in venture capital and technology startups. I used to work for Peter Thiel, who was the founder of PayPal. So I came up with a lot of those guys. I used to work with Keith Raboy, who's the founder of Open Door. So there's a lot of crossover between the guys that came up with Facebook and stuff of that. LinkedIn, was a consultant for LinkedIn in the beginning. And, and these are the main networks and people and players that are kind of shaping what we're doing as a society today. And good or bad. It's just kind of what it is. And so, in 2009, I decided to enter the mortgage industry because I saw a good opportunity because at that time in 2009, especially in mortgage, is like it was the old days, like faxes and old computers, and it was just bad. Marketing was horrible. So I saw an opportunity to do something different, and so I got to do that the last 10 years with Mason McDuffie and do some new things and some cool stuff. And I started helping agents and loan officers and the end of 2011, 2012 with modern marketing, social media. And at that time, every single agent, every single loan officer told me that they would never get any business off of Facebook. And social media would never be something to where that was a business driver, which we all know how silly that sounds now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've always been what they call a contrarian. I always do things a little different and not just be a contrarian. Like anyone could just be different and not do something against the grain. But I come at it from a point of doing this. And you and I talked about this last week when it comes to like chaos and things changing in the industry is I look for the opportunities. I look for where the difference is, and because there's always an opportunity in everything when anything happens. And so that's what I've kind of built my career on. And in 2016, I started to go all in on the personal branding after hearing Gary Vaynerchuk speak live. And so I did that. I created the brand, the Real Estate CIO, and I did that for 2 years. And then that like you mentioned speaking, that has turned into doing a lot of public speaking. So I've been a national speaker for the last year and a half, going around from New York to San Francisco, talking at Inman Connect, Housing Wire, California Association of Realtors, a lot a lot of different real estate and mortgage events, talking about branding, talking about modern marketing, social media, flash briefings, podcasting, anything you could think about, because in our business there's such an opportunity for loan officers and agents to take advantage of this. To me, I look at it as social media was made for our industry because it allows us to connect with more people and reach out and create a brand.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the reality is, people who in an industry like ours, where the salesperson, if you will, really is the brand, right?
Yep.
And because it's built on relationships. And not to say that it's all built on relationships, but the majority of it is. I know that's the way my business has always run, is around relationships and forming new ones, and of course nurturing those. And I agree. I don't think there's a better tool. It's almost like social media was made perfectly for the independent contractor or somebody who's like they've got to go out and kill their own food, right? It's made perfect for that person.
Oh yeah, totally. And that's because we both know branding is such a key for us. And we've had this discussion, offline, and I know I've heard you talk about it. We've seen it in the Facebook groups and stuff, especially when people talking about like the brand of whether it's KW, EXP, Compass, or whatever it is. The brand helps, right? The brand helps, the brokerage helps. But when it comes down to it, you, the agent, are the face to that client, right? They're probably not coming to you because you're at Remax, right? They're probably coming to you because you're you, right? They saw a video of you, Facebook Live, or an ad, something in a magazine, a billboard, whatever it is, with your messaging in your face or hearing your voice or whatever that is, and they decided to come to you, right? Now, maybe sometimes they looked up a brokerage. I personally don't know anybody that does that. They go on Yelp or whatever. They don't type in, oh, Remax, what's the best Remax agent? They type in, what's the best agent, right? And so the person that's going to come up is going to be you. It's going to be Rebrand. And I'm not picking on Remax. It's just popped up. But like, Keller Williams or EXP or whatever, it really comes down to that agent and the brand, because in the end of the day, our industries have become commoditized when it comes to mortgage and real estate. And so the only thing that people are going to remember is as how you make them feel, and that all comes back to your brand as an agent and what you're putting out there.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. Too, the other piece of it, I think why what you do is so important, and the message you've been preaching is so important, and it's the same thing I've been preaching to the agents on our team, especially really hard for the last year and a half, is because so many people in our industry are so worried about technology. You mentioned Open Door earlier, like technology and disruption, et cetera. And, that's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. We can't stop that, right? That train, that ship has sailed. The train is going already. What we can do, though, is we can sort of protect our house. And the way we do that is build stronger relationships. I'll tell you, Stevie D, right, with Fidelity in Sync. And so Steve's a friend of mine. I was texting him last night because I saw a video he posted on LinkedIn talking about a story of the company Chewy. Have you heard of them? They deliver dog food, other things, right? And his mom, unfortunately, her dog just passed away.
Oh, wow.
And so she canceled her order on Chewy. And, it's got a little questionnaire like, what's going on? Did you find another thing? Or, did the dog unfortunately pass away? It gave like 4 or 5 options, and she selected unfortunately the dog passed away. Well, dude, I think it was 3 days later, he said, a bouquet of flowers and a condolence card showed up at the front door with a handwritten note, literally, and even with the dog's name. Like, that is a company who is doing what we can do so much easier on this one-to-one scale, like doing that big time. Like, what a great example. And I feel like if we don't treat people like that, and we don't take the time to really build our brand with our circle, like, we could be left in the dust when it comes to this disruption game.
Yeah, and that's 100%, because when it comes down to it is when when people are like, oh, we got to stop this, we got to stop that. That just puts you in a defense mentality, and that defense it's not like sports. Defense isn't going to win you the championship in this one, right? You have to, like you said, protect your house. How am I going to build a stronger house? How am I going to build a stronger brand? And what you just said is a perfect example of a lot. And I equate it to this. Like, I equate it to either you're in this business for legacy or you're not. right? You're either a creator or you're a worker. You're either creating a brand, creating a better experience, or you're just transactional. You just, hey, lead comes in, I help them buy their house, I help them sell their house, and then I'm done and I'm on to the next, right? Now, look, I am more for the former, not the latter. And if you're doing the latter, fantastic. You do that until the wheels fall off 100%, right? It's not saying one's better than the other. But what I will say is the transactional, the latter people, those are the ones that are going to be challenged with all these things that are happening. Like you said, Kevin, you cannot stop this stuff. You cannot stop what's happening. You cannot stop the iBuyers. You cannot stop Zillow from buying houses. You can't stop Zillow from doing mortgages. You can't stop any of that stuff. But what you can do is improve on what you're doing, learn from the Zillows and the Open Doors and stuff and what they're doing, as we've seen some real estate shops do, where they're doing their own iBuyers, right? Like, learn from what's working and make it your own. In every industry that's been disrupted, everything that we've seen that's happened across every vertical, across every company, those that focus on those things to adapt and increase market share through growth mentality as opposed to defense mentality, they end up being just fine. It's the ones that are like, no, this is not going to happen, and we're going to fight it, and we're going to go, NAR, why aren't you doing anything? NBA, why aren't you doing anything? It's like, what do you want them to do, right? Like, what? They're not going to do anything. They should be helping us grow and focus on different things, but it's not about trying to stop Zillow, which is just a fool's errand. It's not really how to beat Zillow. It's about how to be something different or better than, right? It's something to be better with your own local, because that's one thing that a lot of agents don't talk about and they should be focusing on, is like, no matter how great Zillow is and all these other ones, they cannot have the local presence and the local branding like you can. Right? They cannot go outside and shake hands and have the face-to-face, the belly-to-belly. That's still just as important today as it was 10 years ago. It's even more important now because everyone's kind of getting sick of the automated technical crap.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's so funny. Like, people were worried about all these things that truthfully we can't control. And what we can control is ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I actually believe this is an opportunity for us to take more market share. There will be people that drop out. And
Yes.
if we get really, like you said, this isn't a place where to play defense. We're actually got to go. The way you play defense in this scenario is by playing offense. The example I'd like to give people, and I stole this from my buddy Templeton, is, we're never going to, as a realtor, I'm never going to have the ad budget, say, of like Pepsi, right?
Yeah.
But with Pepsi, if I listen to the radio and I drive down the freeway and I watch TV, what I'm going to see is I'm going to see a billboard with the Pepsi can. I'm going to hear the cracking of the can, that sound or whatever, and I'm going to see that on TV as well. And they're going to be everywhere I go. Well, I don't have $100 million a month to spend. Pepsi can literally be everywhere. Well, I can be like that, though, to a limited number of people, to a couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand people. I can do it to them, but I can't do it to the whole world. So if I start to focus in on those opportunities with my sphere of influence and the people around me and the people in my community, and whatever my community, whether that be demographic or geographic, I can really make an impact and really, by playing offense, build a big wall around my business.
Yeah. And that, again, that is just, it's exactly just understanding the logic behind what's happening. Like, and I've written articles about this. I've talked about this, is, look, you are not going to compete as a singular agent. Like, guess what? Amazon could lose hundreds of millions of dollars to buy a market, right? Zillow can lose money, as they have before, to grab market share. They could lose $100 million. You, as an agent or a brokerage or mortgage lender, cannot. And so you can never compete on those levels of scale. But what you can do is compete locally, like you just said, which is 100%, because they can't, like, from Zillow's standpoint, they can't just like decide like, okay, we got to put everything into like Phoenix, right? Like, they got to be national. They're a national company, right? Quicken has to be a national company. Like, and Quicken's a perfect example. They don't attract business; they chase it. If you watch, like, you see, and Quicken's actually losing a little bit of ground, but they've been the number one purchase lender for a while, for a few years, right? But I will tell you right now, if Quicken stopped advertising, stopped buying Super Bowl commercials, stopped doing all the advertising and things that they're doing right now, they would lose a ton of business, because they don't foster loyalty. They don't foster any type of attraction at all besides their advertising. That's it. Whereas you, Kevin, and other people can attract people. People know you. They remember you. They remember how you made them felt. They remember that whole journey that you put them on. They remember, what you did. And Eric Sachs, right? Perfect example, right? He's a great guy. And what's awesome is that the story that he told me about being the Slurpee realtor. I don't know if you ever heard it, but he talked about, like, as an agent, that's what he did. And so when he would give them the house, he would leave some nice things in the house for them, and he would leave a Slurpee cup, because that was what he drove them around. He got a Slurpee, and that was the thing that resonated with people. People were thinking, well, like, Slurpee, what is it? Doesn't. It just has to, you guys got to think about terms of touch points, right? And that's what Zillow can't do. And that is what Rocket Mortgage can't do. That's what none of these big companies can do, but you as a hyper-local agent can do all of these things.
Absolutely, man. I think that is so straight on. And yeah, Eric's a great example of that. Let me ask you this. I mean, because you're out in front of so many people and you're talking to agents and mixing it up with LOs and agents, et cetera. What are some of the fundamental things that you see are happening that probably could be an easy tweak for people? Like, what are some of the most common errors, or maybe even not on the error side, but what's like the one or two things somebody should be doing that most aren't at this point?
Yeah. So one, surprisingly enough, one is Facebook ads, right? Like, and I know it's going to sound stupid, like, okay, well, yeah, we've heard that a million times. And one thing that I learned from Gary Vaynerchuk at Agent 2021 is that, look, a lot of the things that I know Kevin has talked about and Fred has talked about, next level agents, the whole deal, like, and you might think, well, what's new? Look, the answer sometimes is the answer, right? I could switch it up, or I could rephrase it a little bit, and I could talk about something else. But sometimes the answer is the answer, right? And so, the thing that I see that agents not doing a lot is Facebook ads. But let me, and this is with a caveat, like, look, there's one thing that you can learn from like a Travis Tom or me or whatever about doing Facebook ads and getting leads and stuff, but using Facebook ads to just simply build your brand and get in your face as many people as possible. So give you an example. So we did this thing in the Agent Marketer where I had everyone do Dennis Yu's $1 a day strategy. I had them record a vertical video talking about something about why they do what they do, or something about the local market. It doesn't, but nothing about like, hey, if you're looking to list your home, or if you're looking to buy a house, choose me. So, but talk about themselves, talk about something personal, talk about something about their local area, and do it and run it at $1 a day. See how many views you get, and see if you get any engagement or whatever, and run it as a vertical, right? Do this. If you're spending $7 a day, right? That's nothing. You're spending $30 a month, every month, just running vertical videos to a radius of that area. People will start to see your face. People will start to hear your voice. And so the reason why I said that is because once you start doing that, you create reach and attention of what you look like and what you sound like. So when you do run that ad, and that's where the biggest mistake comes in, and this is where I'm kind of circling everything back, is that perfect example, right? If I've never met Kevin before in my life, and we're just walking down the street, and Kevin goes, "Hey, I'm an agent. What do you want? Want to use me to buy your house? Or are you thinking about selling your house?" Like just right or whatever, even though he could be a good guy and he's awesome and he's fun to talk to and stuff like that. That's like, whoa, that's like right there, instant sales pitch, right? But if I've seen Kevin around the neighborhood and he talks about smoking meats, or he talks about a barbecue, he talks about this new water park that's coming around, or he talked about the new White Castle that I heard that you guys are getting down there, or something like that. He talks about stuff that's interesting that I care about. And then at one point, Kevin talks about being an agent, right? Like, that's how you need to do it. And so that's why doing these little vertical videos, the $1 a day, it allows people to get used to you, so that when they do see an ad to where, do you want to find houses under, $400,000, or do you want to find out what your home is worth? Hopefully, and I've seen this work, and I say hopefully because it doesn't work all the time. Like it's a long game, but when you're doing things like that, that allows those ads to be better received. And I've had proof of this, in our coaching program, where we've had people that have done those ads for months, and then they go and run their first lead ad, and they've spent less than $5, and they end up getting four listing appointments, right? Like, it happens, and it's because they've created some form of trust by people seeing them enough. So that would be the one thing, is using Facebook ads, not specifically for lead generation, but building an awareness of your brand.
Yeah, exactly. You allow people to really start to develop a relationship with you
Yeah.
digitally. And like you said, for $1 a day, like it's such an easy strategy that I think so many people miss. I'm glad that you said that one. The example you gave about where, had I approached you on the street and just said, hey, I want to buy a house.
Yeah.
It reminds me of my buddy, John Cheplack. He equates that to, you meet somebody at a bar and you instantly ask, hey, you want to get married and have 2 kids?
Yeah.
Right at my name, my name
Yeah.
is John, want to get married and have 2 kids. You
Yeah.
wouldn't do that, right? Well, I mean, most people probably do that.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple realtors I know might.
Yeah.
But so why would you do that with your marketing or with your branding or with your lead generation? It's not the way people communicate. And I think, in my opinion, one of the bigger mistakes people make is they don't communicate in marketing the way they communicate with a human being in person. And
Yes.
we've got to humanize it, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's one thing that everyone that's listening to this podcast needs to understand. And this right here, what I'm about to say is what's really beneficial to us in this industry that are hyper local. And that we've gone through the last 15 or 19 years of social media, technology, the internet, really coming together as a society to be comfortable living an online life, right? With the Venmo, DoorDash, Uber, we're living that subscription-based life, right? Like, so society's changed a bit. But what it comes down to is we're also getting fatigued with the constant marketing, the messaging, the commercialization of everything. Is that this is what I'm about to say, is that the most human company is going to win, right? The automated messages, the drips and all that stuff, fine, continue to do that stuff. But what it comes down to and what's been proven is that from a consumer level, customization, personalization, that human messaging, like you mentioned with Chewy, right? Totally a perfect example of that. That is a human behavior, right? That is something. Now they may have used the automation for the mechanical pieces of that, right? And that's fine. But the whole process and the strategy is about being a human being. And the more that you mix that into your messaging and marketing and act as a human, as a one-to-one, as opposed to just a shotgun approach of hitting everything, the more success you're going to have, the more reach, and you will win business, especially now because the next, especially in our industry, the next 36 months are going to be telling for a lot of agents and a lot of loan officers. And to me, not just in our industry, but anyone that's doing any type of email, Facebook ads, whatever, the most human interest is what consumers are going to latch onto. And that is who they're going to end up using to do their business.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. So you just said something, and I know I promised I'd get you out of here in not much more time. So I'll start to wind down. But before I do that, let me ask you this. So what do you think is I don't necessarily want a prediction. I'm not asking you to put you on the spot for a prediction in the next 36 months. But, if you were given a realtor or a lender, someone in sales, maybe even an insurance agent, some advice right now on, hey, here's what I see coming in the next 36 months, or here's what I should really be doing. Like, and maybe it's someone close to you. Like, how are you advising them, or what is it that you see coming that we need to maybe better prepare for?
Yeah. So I'll start off with our industry, and I just mentioned it. In the next 36 months, now the real estate side, the benefit the real estate side has had is that they've been going through the disruption and they've been adapting for the most part. You see like the rise of EXP, for example, right? A different way of doing the real estate business. You'd see rise of Compass. KW is kind of doing a lot of new things right now. They're at least getting it, but I will say, like, and again, nothing, I want everyone to understand everything that I'm very blunt, I'm very candid, but everything that I talk about is a great appreciation and passion and respect for those that do your job, those that are loan officers, those that are real estate agents. It all comes from that, because I want them to win. I want the best ones to win, right? Because I don't want this industry to change from what it was. I want it to be done, but I want it to be done by the people that work in the trenches every single day. Now, next 36 months, a lot of those people we talked about, kind of the have-nots, right? The people that don't get it, the people that are transactional, they're going to go away. And that's going to be good for those that have decided to make this about legacy, about being a professional, about this is what I'm going to do for my life, and this is it. And so those people are going to end up winning. And when it comes down to it, based off of some of the stuff that we talked about. Now, when we talk about overall, when it comes to sales, you have to have the consumer's interest, right? In the agent marketer, we call it the 3 L's, which are pretty obvious, but it's like you focus on content about what people like, what they love, and where they live. And so from a marketing standpoint, what I've been going around and talking about a lot is that if you're looking for that first mover, if you're looking for a way to grab market share, if you're looking for that way to grab interest, you got to look at what's trending and where we're going, and that is voice, right? That's podcasts. And podcasts aren't new, right? Podcasts have been around for quite a long time, right?
Quite some time.
A long time, but now it's really becoming mainstream where a lot, like even if you look in like a Tesla, like that podcasting is built into the dashboard, right? And Teslas aren't new either, right? Like, so understand that they had the forethought of knowing like this is where we're going for content consumption, right? Flash briefings, right, that we do on that, I'll say the Lexi because I don't want mine going off right now, but the Amazon Echo devices, right, that are in everywhere that, that are, millions, tens of millions of people have these. Last count was like around 85 have these devices in their house because they're doing it for other things. So from a sales perspective, all you need to care about, right? People always get mixed in with like messaging, like I'm in insurance, I'm in real estate, I'm in mortgage. You just have to have their intention for whatever reason that happens to be. And you could do that. Do a flash briefing based off of news in your local market, and you could read it from other sources. You don't have to come up with it. And then once a day you have a market update or new listings or something like that. The thing is, and you just do that one time, right? Once a week. Everything else is about interest. They learn to like you. That's almost like you get to be your own radio host like you do on a podcast, except flash briefing is more, like a micro podcast level, keep these things like around 3 to 5 minutes. But you can grab so much mind share and market share from doing this because this is where people are going. Like CNN just started a flash briefing. And the more that these mainstream media giants do this, the more that they shine a light on it to the consumer, where consumers are like, what are flash briefings? I want to know. And then when they go finally on Amazon to look for these things, they'll see, hey, the San Diego news or San Diego, whatever. And if you're the first one to get that name, then that's you. Right. And that's what people are searching for. And that's what they find. And they're going to hear your voice. They're going to hear they're going to hear your branding, right? Talking about sponsorship and everything else. That is the advice I would give, is to get on something that you could be a first mover on. And just to take it just a little bit farther is that if you look on a timeline when it comes to consumption of any type of medium, whether it be video or, posting or Instagram or anything, I think we could all agree that if we could all go back in time and start a presence and influence on YouTube when it first started, before they started monetizing and everything else, you would. Of course you would, right? You have that chance now with podcasts. You have that chance now, especially with flash briefings because they're so new. Do these things. You will not be disappointed. This is why they're being integrated into homes. They're being integrated into cars. This is where people's content where most content's going to be consumed. And the reason why is that every single human being wants to make efficient use of their time and be able to do things while they're passively consuming content. And that is flash briefings and podcasts.
Yeah, man, I think you nailed it. That was so good. Well, Jason, let me ask you this real quick. What's the best way for a listener or maybe somebody who's viewing this on YouTube to get a hold of you or to kind of keep up with what you're doing, and whether that be speaking or just some of the other stuff you have going on?
Yeah. So, I have a couple websites, but one is just go to the agentmarketerpodcast.com. So you could listen to episodes of my podcast, but I also have a link to the Agent Marketer, which is the coaching group. I have a newsletter you could sign up for when I talk to, and I'm starting to develop all of my content around that one branding element, which is, obviously that website. And you could contact me off there. And like I said, hear a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about and get it more in depth. And then also when I, like next week, I'll be speaking in Thousand Oaks to about 200 agents about marketing and stuff like that. And it's kind of what I do. And, when I do webinars and live podcasts, I'll be doing them on that site as well.
Right on. Well, I'm going to hit you with a new question. The fastball. This will be the last one. We'll end on this. What are your 3 favorite social tools right now that you're either using or checking out and considering to use that you're into?
Yeah. So one is Kapwing, and that's Kapwing. And that, for anyone that has followed me, knows that I like to do memes. And so that's what I do. It's all web-based, but you could also transfer those to your phone as well. But it's Kapwing. It's easy way to do video because you could grab snippets from Giphy, you could grab snippets from YouTube directly into the program. and then create like, the bottom borders and do your branding on there in different colors and stuff like that. So Capwing is one, super cheap. Another one is Vengage, and that's VENNGAGE, and that is for doing infographics. If you want to grab attention doing graphics on social media, do infographics. And so Vengage is what I use for doing that. And then lastly is Snappa. So Snappa is a great way to do, it's kind of like Canva. I'm not a big fan of Canva. I used to use Canva a lot, but then I found Snappa and haven't looked back. Snappa is super simple to create images of different size, and they have templates. So you just upload images and stuff like that, and just quickly make images for LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. So those are the 3 tools that I'm using the most, because right now it's really about getting that visual element out on social media.
Right on, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you spending some time with us today on the Next Level podcast. And until I talk to you again, man, have a great day, Jason. I appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.